Thanks for watching Valley Viewpoint. My name's Daniel Biggs, and today we have a special guest from northern Idaho. His name is Don Frost, and he's part of a very wonderful ministry called Heal Their Land. Don, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me again, Daniel, sorry.
That's all right. So, Don, you have a ministry that you're a part of. Can you tell us a little bit about that ministry?
Yes, Heal Their Land is a ministry made up of other Seventh-day Adventist ministries. So it's a group of both Seventh-day Adventist pastors and lay people, and we come together and we put on these endeavors to bring public awareness to the soon coming of Christ.
As a matter of fact, we together, I was blessed to be a part of that group that went to Washington, D.C. and was on Capitol Hill,
yes,
preaching the gospel.
Not only did we have meetings there on Capitol Hill, but we had the privilege of being able to take the third angel's message and to be able to hand it to the office of every single congressman on Capitol Hill.
So, now you have new plans and some new projects. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening now with Heal Their Land?
Well, two of the projects that we're working on right now, and we'll get into the meat of what they are, but just to explain them up front, is that we're going to be building two images. One is going to be 90 feet tall, and it is, I brought here a little example of what it is. For our audience here, this is the Daniel 2 image, and of course it's in the different metals of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, and we're going to be building two of these. One is 90 feet tall and the other one is 40 feet tall, and one will be placed in Manhattan in New York City, and the other one is going to be placed in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And so we want to use these as visual tools. We're not building these images here to basically say, hey, we built this big image or encourage worship of it or anything like that. We're doing them as an educational tool because people are going to naturally look at a 90-foot tall image and see, well, it's got a head of gold and chest and arms of silver. Well, what does this mean? And so this will be used as a tool to teach people about the soon coming of Christ. Because in that dream that Nebuchadnezzar has, it's not ultimately about the image. It's about the rock that comes down and hits the image. And that rock is Jesus. So the dream or the vision is about the soon coming of Jesus Christ and what are the geopolitical world situation when Christ returns.
So can you tell us just a brief description that this vision in Daniel chapter 2 reveals a statue, and the statue is talking about world powers, and one being overtaken by another, finally to be overtaken by Christ's kingdom.
Yes.
And we believe we're down in the tiptoes of this statue.
We're in the feet. We're in the feet as you look at this, and here we are. We're talking about this little image right here, but we're using this right here as an educational tool, and we plan to do this same thing that we're doing right now, but on a larger scale, so that many millions of people will be able to see it. And of course, this image goes down here to the feet that are part of iron, part of clay. And we as Seventh-day Adventists, and I'm sure there's other Christians that believe this, that this is the period of time in which we're living, that the Roman Empire was divided up into 10 original divisions that we know as the nations of Europe. And Scripture tells us that these powers would mingle their seed with the seed of men. They would try and cleave together. And then in the days of those kings, when they try and bring it back together again, that's when this stone comes down there. And I think as Seventh-day Adventists, we have an unbelievable opportunity right now because, many people have tried to bring Europe back together again. Charlemagne, Charles V, Napoleon, Kaiser Wilhelm, Stalin, Hitler, they all failed. And so in recent years, they've tried to bring it together again through the European Union. And now we have Brexit. We see that the European Union experiment is crumbling. And we believe that the Bible is telling us that we're living in the days of those kings when they try and put everything back together again and have a one world European power there. And now's the time to get the message out about the soon coming of Christ, about this rock that comes down, cut without hands.
And those people, though they're trying to blend them together, it's like iron mixed with clay, and they don't adhere.
It doesn't stick.
It doesn't work. And that,
it's like oil and water. They just, you can mix them up for a while, but in a little bit, they're going to separate again. So
now, should I be, let's say I really think that this is a very important tool, teaching tool, but maybe I'm caught up a little bit with this idea of, building a statue or an image.
Yes.
Should I mean, is that a concern that you think I could have, or maybe other people might have?
Absolutely. Dan, I can tell you my own testimony is what we were doing was we're working on some illustrations for a Seventh-day Adventist evangelist to have meetings in New York City. And one of the team members, actually my wife, suggested that we build a 10-foot tall Daniel 2 statue to use as an illustration so that when people came to the meetings, they would have a visual. And what ended up happening over time, we got to thinking about, 10 feet, that's great, but maybe about 20 feet. And then we said, 20 feet's great, but what about, and we took it all the way up to 90 feet. Nebuchadnezzar built an image that he made people worship. We're not trying to do that. But he built his image 90 feet tall. And this story, of course, is in the book of Daniel. And so what we did was we said, that was an attention grabber. And so let's do one 90 feet tall. And so now the concern is, and the concern that I had when we first started talking about this, because I'm a programmed Seventh-day Adventist, and the commandments say, not to make any graven image. Second commandment, make not unto thyself any graven image. And so when we start talking about building these images, you should, if you're not having these warning signs, warning, 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 no image. So why would we build an image when the Bible says no image? Well, if you keep reading to the next verse, it says, don't make an image to bow down to it. And so I have some Bible quotes here because, God is not the author of confusion. He wouldn't tell us not to make images and then command his people to make images.
Right.
And so in Exodus chapter 25, in the section of verses 17 to 20, we have instructions that God has given to build the Ark of the Covenant. And on the Ark of the Covenant in verse 19, Exodus 25 and verse 19, it says, make one cherub on the one end, and on the other a cherub on the other end. Of the mercy seat ye shall make the cherubims on the two ends of the mercy seat. So God has given instructions to make these images. And then if you go to Numbers chapter 21 and verse 8, it says, the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent. This is when the children of Israel were in the wilderness and they were having problems with being bitten by serpents. And the Lord saying in verse 8 of Numbers 21, and the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that every one that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. And verse 9 says this, and Moses made a serpent of brass. Well, that's an image. That's a graven image. And he put it upon a pole, and it came to pass, if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, that he lived. And so, is God telling us, don't make an image, and then telling us to make an image? No. He's saying, don't make an image and bow down to it, But if you would use these things as illustrations, then it's permissive. Now, in Ezekiel chapter 41, we won't go into all the details, but in Ezekiel chapter 41, verses 17 to 21, when Ezekiel is given the specifications for building the temple, we see that not only are there cherubims, but there's palm trees, and there's even cherubs with two faces that are to be illustrated there in the temple. So the Bible is telling us that the use of these illustrations to convey an education or to show people an example of God's will is totally acceptable.
So this method has been used in ancient times, found in the Bible.
Yes.
As directed by God. Has the Seventh-day Adventist Church ever done this in the past?
Well, this is interesting. Before the Seventh-day Adventist people were organized into a denomination in 1863, the members of what would become the Seventh-day Adventist Church were part of what was known as the Great Advent Movement. And the Great Advent Movement had its greatest impetus between 1840 and 44. And I would like to share a quote here from Signs of the Times, May 29, 1844, and this is off of the Ellen White CD-ROM under the Pioneer Writings. It's and the heading is called "The Cause in Cincinnati." The Cause in Cincinnati, and this is what it says: "The meetings are still continued at Great Tent." And by the way, the Adventists had the largest tent in the United States in this 1844 time period. And it says, "The meetings are still continued at Great Tent and have increased in interest since our last account. Brother Brewer lectured on Sabbath a.m. upon the seven seals. The congregations were much interested. Brother Fitch," this is Charles Fitch, "lectured in the afternoon, briefly going over the 2nd, 7th, and 8th chapters of the prophecies of Daniel. The rise and fall of the four universal kingdoms that were to precede God's everlasting kingdom was illustrated in a very impressive manner by the aid of a carved image representing the one described in Daniel 2, verses 32 and 33. When proof was adduced that the ancient Babylon fell, the head of the image was taken off and laid aside, and so the breast and arms, the belly and sides, then the legs, leaving nothing but the feet and toes. None but the willfully blind could help seeing that we are living in the very last days." Brother Fitch lectured again in the evening from Daniel 11 and 12th chapters. More attentive congregations could not be found than we had throughout the day. The number that thronged the tent could not have been much, if any less, than 5,000 persons at each meeting. So in 1844, they're using this image, and they're having 4,000 and 5,000 people come out at these meetings.
Well, we're going to have to take a quick break, and we're going to put on the screen some information about Heal Their Land, that ministry that you're a part of. And thank you for watching, and we'll be right back with an exciting conclusion to this Valley Viewpoint. Thank you for watching the second half of this conversation with Don Frost from a ministry called Heal Their Land, and you can get more information at healtheirland.org. And we were just talking in the first half about using biblical images to teach. And Don Frost and the group at Heal Their Land have actually plans to put statues of the statue of in Daniel 2 that will go to New York and Jamaica.
Yes.
And we were just talking about how these are acceptable images to be sharing because they're not to be bowed down to, but they are to be used as effective learning tools.
Absolutely. We shared in the last segment a quote from 1844, And now I want to share a quote from a book called Prophetic Faith of Our Fathers, an Adventist book. This quote's also found on the Ellen White CD-ROM in the Pioneer section, and it's called PFF4, page 540, paragraph 3. And this is, again, talking about the movement in 1844. And this is what it says. Fitch, this is Charles Fitch, used interest-arresting visual methods. I like that. Interest-arresting visual aid methods. When he lectured in the big tent on Daniel 2, he used a large statue made in sections to represent the great image. As he told of Babylon's fall, he removed the head, and so on with other sections. When only the feet of the modern nations were left, the people understood that we are truly living in the last days. And so the methodology worked really, really well. Mm-hmm. And if I could, I'd like to share about another amazing Seventh-day Adventist evangelist and preacher and innovator. And you can find out a lot about him, Daniel, in the book by Ellen White called Evangelism. And so most of these quotes right here I'll be sharing from this book Evangelism under the title of Truth Teaching Devices. And so this amazing man, his name was W.W. Simpson, considered to be by many one of the most effective big city evangelists, and he was a contemporary with Ellen White. And notice what she says here in the book Evangelism, page 204 and paragraph 3. And I'm not going to go over all the quotes. I'm just going to pick out some of the verbiage here. It says, Brother Simpson dwells especially upon the prophecies in the books of Daniel and Revelation. He has large representations of the beasts spoken of in these books. She says that these are ingenious invention. And she goes on to say, thus he holds the attention of the people. So he's able to use these large representations. She goes on to say in the next paragraph, Evangelism 204, paragraph 4, the labors of Elder Simpson remind me of the labors put forth in 1842 to 44. So, in other words, he's using the same methodology like Charles Fitch uses in arresting the attention of the people. In the next paragraph, Evangelism 205, paragraph 1, she says this, he has large, and notice this, large, lifelike representations of the beasts and symbols in Daniel and Revelation. And these are brought forward at the proper time to illustrate his remarks. In the next paragraph, she says this, Elder Simpson is arousing a good interest by his meetings. People of all classes come out to hear and to see the life-size images that he has of the beasts of Revelation. A great many Catholics come to hear him. So not only are these effective, but they're especially effective with Catholics as well. And, God has many, many people in these other churches, and especially the Catholic Church. And this is a proven method of attracting the attention of the people. In manuscript 105, 1906, which is also found in the book Evangelism, page 205, paragraph 3, she says this, I am pleased with the manner in which our brother Elder Simpson has used his ingenuity and tact in providing suitable illustrations for the subjects presented, representations that have a convincing power. Such methods will be used more and more in the closing work. And that's what's so exciting about this project, Daniel, is that not only does it work, but we have from the Spirit of Prophecy telling us that this is going to be used more and more, not less and less. And so it's exciting to be a part of a project that can take such a simple and inexpensive thing. And that's what this ends up being, because when you erect a large image like this, the amount of people that it can reach that will stimulate their mind to ask questions, what is all this about, is just really mind-blowing. We're talking about millions and millions and even tens of millions of people being able to view this image.
So talk to us one more time about Manhattan and where that statue is going, and what in your mind, what are you seeing happen, and is it just the statue? Is there something else that people will they be able to learn about those?
Well, let me tell you what our plans are. First of all, we have two statues that we're in the process of building. One statue is going to be made of all metal. It's going to be made out of quarter-inch plates of aluminum by an amazingly talented man, and he's going to build this thing with these plates. Thousands of these plates. They're going to be faceted together with a steel support beam in the middle. And this man's name is Herb Larson. Now, for those of you that live locally here, there's a market. I don't know if it's still there. Haven't been there recently. I know the market's still there. It's called Andy's Market. You ever been there?
Yes.
In fact, I've run into you there before. And in Andy's Market, they had, and they may still have, a bread machine. Have you been in there lately?
Yes.
Do they still have that bread machine in there?
I can't remember. If they've
Okay.
done that, yeah.
Well, he actually built that thing. You know, it's like totally automated, and it makes, and then it bakes the bread and everything. But he's done some amazing things. Herb Larson speaks. He travels around the world and speaks. He's an artist. He's an engraver. He's a welder. He's a businessman. He's like the modern Renaissance man. He has that nickname. And so, and he's a Seventh-day Adventist. And so he's going to make this amazing piece of artwork. Now, this is where we need the God's people to keep this in prayer, because what we want to do is take this artwork that Herb Larson is going to be building, and it is really, really, truly artwork. And it's going to be powder coated in the different metallic metals, in gold, silver, brass, and iron, and feet of iron and clay. And it's going to be placed in New York City, and we're working on putting this in New York City as a work of art, and getting a special permit to have it right there in Times Square. Now, the other tree is going to go, or I say tree, the other image, it's going to be carved out of a tree, and it's going to be placed in Jamaica, and we have a talented individual, Eugene Hunter, that's going to oversee. He's a professional chainsaw carver, and he's going to oversee the carving of this giant log into the Daniel 2 image, and then we're going to seal the wood, and it's going to be electroplated in the various colors, put in a shipping container 40 feet long, and sent to Jamaica, where it will be used to illustrate the story there.
So we're coming to the end here. Can you quickly tell us? So they'll see the image, and then what happens? Will they be able to understand what they're seeing?
Well, that's great, because it's not just about building this image, it's about getting out the story. Mm-hmm. And the story is ultimately about the soon coming of Christ. And so literature evangelists, both in New York and Jamaica, will be able to have a endless amount of people that they can hand literature to, because in the two places that we want to have this, you can't oversaturate it. So 300,000 people a day come to Times Square. Tomorrow, a different 300,000. Mm-hmm. So it's just cycling through there. So we're very excited about this, to be able to not only use this tool, but work with the Seventh-day Adventist churches in both Jamaica and New York City, and encourage the local literature evangelists to be a part of handing out the material there.
Brother, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
what you're doing. And I just want to ask you, viewers, hopefully you can get excited about this project and being a part of this. And would you maybe consider donating to this cause? It's at healtheirland.org. Thank you so much for watching. God bless.